Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Still in the middle of editing my Japan vlogs, but I've been getting so many questions from my friends about the Japan trip, planning what it's like when you're there. I thought it would just be helpful for me to put together a video for everyone to answer the top questions that I've been getting and questions that I see online. So I'm going to try to answer them the best that I can, and hopefully some of this information will help you plan your trip to Japan. I guess first, I'm going to talk about the language barrier over there. Do people in Japan speak English? So the answer to that is some people do. You're more likely to run into someone that does speak English when you're in the bigger cities like Tokyo. However, many people do not. But don't let that discourage you because Japanese people in general were very helpful. Even if we had a hard time communicating, I would use translator or I would use my phone and we would use gestures and things like that. And I think for the most part, it made it a lot easier than what you might think. And I didn't really have that much trouble getting around. We're going to get to that later, but more likely to find an English speaker in the big cities and at certain places like hotels, big retail stores, or popular tourist spots. Those are the type of places where somebody who is more proficient in English might be employed to help you. So, a nice tip is that let's say you're walking around and you want to call a taxi. What you can do is you can just walk into any hotel, go to the reception. Very likely the person at reception will either speak English or they will go get somebody on their staff that speaks English to help you out. But overall, it's not a very English speaking country like, say, when I went to Thailand. I actually think that I felt like I ran into more English speakers in Thailand versus in Japan. That said, there are actually a lot of things that will help mitigate the lack of English speakers over there. Like a lot of the signs in the train system, the subway, and just around will have romanized letters. And so, yes, there are signs that you can read over in Japan to help you get around. A lot of Japan it actually has these electronic kiosks or tablets. Like say there were restaurants that I went to that had a tablet ordering system, or you have some kind of like electronic vending machine. Usually, a lot of the time, they will have an English language option in the machine. Let's say you're buying a train ticket, you can go to the bottom. There's like a button there to change the language to English, so you can do that. I was ordering sushi at one of those revolving sushi places. They have a tablet where you can order. Same thing, you can just change the language to English and then order whatever you want. The next question, is it difficult to get around without knowing Japanese? So I didn't think so. I did rely heavily on my phone for maps and translation, but other than that, like, no, I would say it was pretty easy to get around. We could talk about it more in the next section here, which is transportation. What's the best way to get around Japan? And so for me, I like the trains, but I think the answer for each person is going to be different. So it depends. It depends on what your situation is. Do you have luggage with you? Do you have kids with you? How quickly do you want to get there? How comfortable do you want to be? How much hassle are you willing to deal with? So the actual true answer is it depends. From my point of view, as a single adult, I mostly use the trains and I loved it. I did use a taxi a couple times. That was when it was late at night and the trains have stopped running because they stop around midnight or so. And I needed to get back to my hotel. And so I actually ended up going to a nearby hotel, not my hotel, but a hotel near where I was. And then I asked them for help to call a taxi for me. And also, I did a taxi one more time to get to the airport on the way home because although you can take the train, you can schedule a bus and things like that. I did have luggage and I was just tired. I didn't want to deal with carrying my luggage up and down stairs, which is pretty common because not all the stations over there have escalators or elevators. And so you actually end up having to carry your luggage. And I just wasn't feeling that at the end of my trip. And so I just decided to get a taxi, ask the front desk to get it for me. And they did. It was very easy for me. I just threw my luggage into the trunk of the car, drove to the airport. I didn't have to deal with any of that hassle. The taxi compared to taking the train or a bus is pricier. To get back from my hotel the first time, it was like $20. And that was going from Asakusa to Ginza or Tsukiji to be more specific. And that was about 20 bucks. And I think to get to the airport from Ginza was $50. To me, it was worth it just to not have to deal with all the hassle of carrying my luggage and things like that. But I think that decision is going to be up to you and your situation. Is the Japan Rail Pass worth it? When I bought it, I went in September and I thought it was fairly worth it. This is before they announced the price hike. Did I think it was worth it before? Sure. Do I think it's worth it after the price change? I haven't done the math on it, but a lot of YouTubers are saying that it's not really worth it anymore. And that makes sense because you can get a one-way Shinkansen ticket for like 100 and something US. I think I spent $250 US and I took the Shinkansen round trip from Tokyo to Osaka. I think that was worth it. And then I also ended up using my JR Pass a few other times in between because there are certain lines that you can use it on as well. And so to really, really maximize the JR Pass, you would have to learn and know which lines you can use it on. And just remember not to pay with your Suico and use your JR Pass. And it is quite confusing for me. I love to research, but it's just a lot to remember what lines will take it and then what stations those lines run to and all that stuff. So it was pretty difficult for me to maximize the value. But I think before at the lower price point, it was worth it. It was convenient, very easy to use. But now I don't think it's worth it anymore, just from what I'm hearing. When I do go back to Tokyo or when I go back to Japan, I will not be getting the JR Pass next time. I'll just be buying a Shinkansen ticket if I need to. I think I'm just going to do a la carte. How do I navigate the Tokyo subway system? Okay, this one was easy. It may seem a little bit intimidating. Right when I got off of the plane, I walked towards the train station within the terminal in Haneda, and it just looked very intimidating. Like there's like a big map of the train routes on the wall. It looks pretty insane. But after I got a hang of using Google Maps and knowing what to look for in the Google Map directions, it became very easy. I would say before your trip, open up Google Maps and put in some directions from like Haneda or Narita to somewhere in Tokyo and look at the results that pop up and just learn how to read it. Like learn like what section is showing you what. Of course, you want to pay attention to the station that it shows you to go to and also the platform because that's basically going to help you find the exact place that you need to be to go into the direction that you want to go in. So like, for example, the train might be going one direction on platform 1, but on platform 2, it's going the opposite direction. And so if you just look out for the platform number, you'll be able to read it at the train station as well. It will just take you exactly where you need to go. Another thing to look out for is the train line symbol and that color that is associated with it, because sometimes you have to do a transfer from one line to another within the same train station. So you're going to get off at one train station and you won't leave the train station, but you're going to walk to another area of that same station to catch a different line. And so there are going to be signs up on the ceiling and like on the walls where it will show you like to go to this particular line, here's a symbol, you want to go to the right, for example. Google is going to show you what line that you're going to need to transfer to. And you just need to remember that symbol and then look up when you're walking out and you will find the directions that will point you to how to get there. That's going to be very helpful for you. Just me and getting comfortable with Google Maps. It took me like a day or two, but after that, no problem getting around on the train system. We're going to talk about accommodation. And so the question I have here for that is, what are the best budget-friendly hotels or hostels? So I think that this is going to be very subjective depending on your own personal budget and your taste. But me personally, I did like the business category of hotels. They were clean, reasonably priced, and you can even find some that were roomy with like 2 separate beds, for example. When I was doing research about hotels, I was actually looking at like very novel stuff because I've seen so many videos about like capsule hotels, and I thought it looked kind of cool, kind of like, oh, that's different. I want to try this. I ended up not, and I think it was the right decision not to go stay in a capsule hotel, at least for a long term. Like, I think if you're going to try a capsule hotel one night, it's just for the novelty. But I heard some interesting horror stories about those capsule hotels. I did research on hostels. I did research on capsule hotels. They are a lower cost option a lot of the times. But after some of the negative stories about sharing spaces with other guests, I decided to book my own room. And the pricing, in my opinion, wasn't that much more. Like, it was more for sure to get my own room, but it wasn't that much more. It wasn't like double the price or anything like that. It was less than double the price. It might be like 25% more, 50% more, depending on the season and what you're actually looking at and comparing. But to me, it was worth it. My hotel room, I think I ended up spending somewhere around $90 a night on average. To me, $90 a night to have my own space, to have it separated from other people, I think it's totally worth the money. But that's just to give you an idea of what's possible. Like there are a lot of hotels, especially like in the big cities like Tokyo, and they're competing with each other for your business. And so I felt that the hotel pricing was quite reasonable in Japan. Next question is, can I find Airbnb accommodations in Japan? So yes, the answer is yes, you can, although I did not personally try this. I think Airbnb as a whole is going to be more beneficial for the type of person who wants more living space or needs more living space, like say like a family, and needs like a kitchen, for example, to prepare at least some of the meals on their own. So I think that there's a certain traveler that fits. That is not me. Since usually I travel with, just friends or by myself, I don't need that much space. I don't need a whole kitchen. I'm not cooking at home or back at the hotel or anything like that. I'm going out to eat. So I don't like Airbnb for my travel needs. I usually book a hotel, and that way I don't have to worry about the other kind of things that come with Airbnb. Like they have certain rules that you need to do certain things or the crazy cleaning fees that they have sometimes. I'd rather just pay for a hotel. They clean the room every day. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Airbnbs. Next section is going to be cultural etiquette. So the first question I have for this section is, what should I know about Japanese customs and etiquette? There's a lot to learn about Japanese etiquette and Japanese culture. I'm not an expert in this area by all means. All I know is just the research that I did myself, watching a lot of YouTube videos, reading a lot of Reddit comments about this kind of stuff, because when I travel, I like to immerse myself in the local culture. I want to try to speak the language. I definitely want to respect the local customs. If you happen to be Asian, I think there is some crossover. When you enter someone's house, you take off your shoes and leave them at the front door. That's a very Asian kind of cultural thing, and that exists in Japan as well. Not when you go to tourist places and out in the public, but if you're visiting someone at their home, you're gonna take off their shoes. So I think that you're gonna have a little bit of an advantage if you're Asian here and you're used to Asian customs because there is crossover. But in general, I would say be nice, be respectful, of course, be quieter. A lot of places, people don't talk as much. When you're on the train, there are certain times and certain places where you will hear people talk on the train. But I would say the split for me was like maybe like 75% of the time people are just quiet, listening to their music on their headphones, minding their own business, and they're not chit-chatting with each other. But there are definitely exceptions to that. Like when I was going to train to a more touristy area like Tokyo Disney, for example, people are talking on a train. But really, it's reading the room. If you walk into a place and you see everyone else is quiet, if I saw that, I would just be quiet. Or if I needed to say something to my friend, I would just very quietly, like whisper quiet. Also, I would say, remember that when we visit Japan, that we are a visitor in their country and their cultural norms can be very different from our home country. For example, for me, the US. So something that you might think that is okay to do in the US might not be okay to do over there. Can I wear shoes indoors in Japan? In most tourist situations, yes. There was only a few times that I actually took off my shoes while I was in Japan. One was when I got back to my hotel, but that's not because the hotel requires you. That's just because I do that when I'm home. Also, when I went to Team Lab Planets, they actually ask you to take off your shoes in a locker room before you begin to walk into the exhibit. I think that's more to do because there's water in the exhibit than a culture thing. Those were the only two situations that I had to take off my shoes. So everywhere else, like when I went to a restaurant or when I went shopping, no, I did not have to take off my shoes. If you're visiting someone in their home, you definitely want to take off your shoes before you go deeper into their home. You want to leave it at the door. Actually, no, I take that back. There was one other place where I had to remove my shoes. One of my friends wanted to go to a dog cafe, a puppy cafe. Basically, they have puppies running around. You pay and then you get to play with them. They did ask us to take off our shoes, and then they give you a pair of slippers that you wear while you're inside playing with the dogs. That was the third situation that I had to remove my shoes, but those are the only situations. Otherwise, nope, I just kept my shoes on everywhere that I went, so you don't have to worry about it. All right, next section is going to be food. What are some must-try Japanese dishes? Great question. Anything Japanese that has ever piqued your interest. So I'm talking sushi, ramen, soba, curry, any dish that you've heard of that you've always wanted to try it. It's most likely going to taste the best that you've ever had, even if you've had it anywhere else. I've had Japanese food in Hawaii, and I think that it can get close in some situations, but hands down, I was blown away by the quality of the food when I was in Japan, of pretty much everything that I tried. I will never look at sushi the same after having it in Japan. I cannot go back to eating sushi in the US. I don't think it's very difficult for me because not only is the quality vastly superior, the variety is vastly superior. But when I say variety, I don't mean like a variety of rolls necessarily, but just a variety of fish that you can try. They just had so many different fish that you can try, prepare different ways. It was amazing. And then thirdly is the price. And so when I was eating sushi over there, it cost me one quarter or maybe one third of the price that it would have cost me here in the US. And so ever since I've got back here, my brain is like, why would I want to pay three times the price of what I was paying in Japan for something that is equal at the best case scenario and more than likely lower quality? So Japan has kind of ruined me for sushi anywhere else. Another thing that I would recommend that you must try is konbini. And so when I say konbini, I mean the convenience stores. So 7-Eleven, Lawson, Family Mart, and there's a few other smaller chains as well. But definitely, you must go to konbini. Although I ate very, very good food when I was in Japan, including a 7-course yakiniku, basically beef barbecue, where the beef was so marbled and it was luscious and rich, tender. A 7-course meal of that. Excellent meal. I would still go to Konbini later that night to grab something because not only is it super convenient, it's really affordable to get something from Konbini and it's just delicious. Like their egg salad sandwiches, delicious. Their onigiri, the tuna mayo, amazing. The spicy chicken nuggets from 7-Eleven, a fruit smoothie, Family Mart chicken. There's just so many things. Almost every day I went to Konbini. Definitely go to Konbini when you're there. Next question is, are there vegetarian or vegan options available? So the answer is sometimes, but it's not like here in the US where they will try to accommodate you. I think there are a few places that will try to accommodate you, but for the most part, restaurants there, they have what they have and you can't really modify. It's not really like a thing there. If you're seeking vegetarian food over there, if possible, try to look for actual vegetarian restaurants rather than go to a ramen restaurant and then expect them to be able to accommodate a vegetarian diet because they might not carry a vegetarian broth at a ramen place if they specialize in tonkatsu. That's just the way it is. If I was vegetarian or if I was looking for vegetarian food, I would do a little bit more research in trying to find vegetarian specific, whatever your dietary need, specific restaurant that will serve or their menu is built around that. And I think that you're going to have a better time. How do I order food if I don't speak Japanese? Okay, this is easy. Many places you can order via an electronic tablet or a vending machine with photos. When I was at Ichiran Ramen, they have a vending machine right before you get seated. There's just pictures of what you want, and then you just go and you just input what you want. It prints out a little ticket, and you just give the ticket to your server, and your ramen will come out for you. For the electronic tablet, there's usually a language button somewhere, and you just click that button and then change the language to your language of choice. Mine was English, and then the whole menu will switch over to English. Worst case scenario, there were a few places that didn't have photos, so I would just take out my phone, use the video translate option where you can translate it live by showing whatever you want to translate on the camera, and then I would just point to that item when the server take our order. Those are the few different ways that you can order if you don't speak Japanese. It does help to know a little bit of basic Japanese, especially if you want to come off as more polite. You can point and say kudasai, which is kind of like please. Or you can say kore o kudasai, just very, very basic Japanese that you can use to come off as more polite. Although it's not super necessary, I think that they can very clearly see that you're a tourist. They don't expect you to be able to speak Japanese. And so if you need to point to something, I think it's very, very normal when they're used to it. Money and payments. And the first question I have here is it better to use cash or cards in Japan? So when I was there, I actually mostly used card. I have a travel card. It's nice to have a travel card because then they're not going to charge you any fees when you use it to buy something over there. And you can have like a Chase Sapphire Reserve, for example. That's a travel card. Amex Gold, Amex Platinum, those are travel cards. There's quite a few out there, but basically you will know because in the benefits of that card, it will tell you that there are no extra fees when using the card in other countries. And so most places that I went to, all the konbinis, many of the restaurants, I went to the theme parks and other tourist attractions. I bought things online when I was over there, and it was mostly with credit card. I would say like 95% of my transactions over there with credit card, which is great to me because then It makes it easier for me to keep track of my spending. I can track it live in the app and things like that. So it was great, and I didn't have to carry around too many coins. That said, there are places that are cash only, some restaurants that are cash only, some vending machines that are cash only. If you want to do those gachapons, which are the, how do I describe this? They have like capsule toys, and you have to put in coins into the slot and turn it, and then it will randomly give you a capsule toy. Those are usually cash only or coins only. Definitely bring some cash. I'm going to talk about more on that a little bit later. But most of the places I use credit card or Apple Pay. And I prefer Apple Pay because Apple Pay actually hides your credit card information from the merchant. And so they just get a like some random information. To me, it's safer. I'm less worried about having my credit card information stolen or cloned. As much as I can, I use Apple Pay, which went through my credit card. And then secondary to that, if they did not take Apple Pay or Tap to Pay, then I would use my actual credit card for chip payment. Next question is going to be, where can I find ATMs that accept foreign cards? So they're around, but my quick and easy answer is konbinis. So in the konbinis, they will have ATMs. You can pull out cash there. Let's see here. Do I need to exchange currency before arriving? You can if you want peace of mind. I actually didn't need any cash when I arrived. I preloaded a digital Suica card in my Apple Wallet on my iPhone, and I used that to get on the train. You can also use that to buy things, like buy a snack or something at a konbini if you want as well. So I actually didn't need cash when I arrived. That said, I did exchange cash when I arrived. Overall, I would recommend to take your US cash with you, or take your home currency cash with you. When you arrive in the other country, they usually give you better exchange rates than your own bank does back home. I don't usually exchange for currency back home. I just wait until I get there. Just take some cash with you and exchange it when you're there. You can usually exchange your cash at the airport. There's usually at least a few places you can do that right at the airport, or after you get outside of the baggage claim. But if you can wait to go into the city and do it, sometimes you find an even better rate. How much money should I bring? So this is very subjective. This is highly dependent on your own spending habits and where you choose to spend your money, and if they are cash only business or not. Me personally, I brought about 500 USD, and I only end up using about 100 USD while I was there because most of my transactions were on credit card.